Howdy ho, folks. Howdy ho. Howdy ho, America and points beyond. Who has power and what are they doing with it? Politics is not a natural act.
That's right.
That's right.
I must admit, I've never heard that one from you.
There's so many feisty fighters against the greedheads and boneheads. So grab a libation, join the conversation. It's the personal side of politics, and it is surprisingly tasty. Hey, Jim Hightower here for the winter solstice edition of Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat Chew Café, otherwise known as my kitchen, which you can see around us here. So grab a libation of your own and pull up a chair here. I've got my own. I've got the local Buckethead beer tonight, which kind of goes with the hat and the hat. I've got double hats today. Some say you can't wear two hats at once, but here I am. So you can join us. This is a beer made, by the way, by Thirsty Planet, a local brewery here in the Austin area. So join us. And Deanna Zant, as always, is right here with us to not only take your order and pull up a chair for you at the round table, but also to participate and gouge us whenever is necessary. Deanna, what are you drinking tonight? You're on something.
I, for once, don't have my bougie White Lady Chardonnay. I made this over the weekend, and it is so good that I'm just drinking it all the time. I made a bottle of vegan Bailey's Irish Cream. See if I can get the lid there. Yeah.
I can hardly contain my enthusiasm.
Listen, this is why I'm bringing this out. I want to give a shout out to the vegans. You get underserved in so many ways, and it is. When you say surprisingly tasty in the intro, this is what it's. So it's oat milk, Irish whiskey, coffee, and some sweetener. And vegans everywhere delight. You are seen and loved.
Vegan
You're like, go away now.
So this evening, we've got a bit of a lighter topic in keeping with the season, whether it's a season of Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa or, whatever here. But it is no less substantive. It is entitled, as I indicated, Laughing Matters. Yeah, laughing does matter. And so the question is there anything funny today, especially in these dicey times in which democracy itself is under assault? What political humors, political lines, humor lines have struck you in recent times, past year? And what humor would you look for in, satirical or parody or just hilarious laughter in the coming year? Have you got some favorite lines that you know of humorists that have put forward? And to help us get into this lighter topic, laughing topic, we've brought a couple of major fun time people. And one will start off with Steve Skrovan, whom I've known for approximately, 140 years or so. I don't know how long it's been. But anyway, Steve and I serve on the board of Public Citizen together. And Steve grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. He not only then was a English major at Yale University, but he was a football player. That's kind of rare, just like a poet tackle on a football team or something like that. Anyway, Steve was both of those things, which probably made him as hilarious as he is today. And he was major writer for the ongoing hit television program Everybody Loves Raymond. And he's also was the producer and director of a film called An Unreasonable Man about Ralph Nader. Steve, welcome with us. Steve comes to us from Pasadena, California. And what are you sipping on there?
I am sipping on, and you caught me, I'm sipping on a Kentucky bourbon. And it's I don't know much about bourbons or distilleries, but it's from Michter's. Okay. And I was doing a stand-up comedy set at one of my college reunions a couple of years ago, and one of my classmates who I did not know at the time supplied all the booze. And he sent me an email after everybody got home from the reunion and said how much he enjoyed my set. And I said, well, I enjoyed your bourbon. And he said, what's your address? I'll send you some.
Oh.
And he sent me 6 cases.
Okay.
Sour mash, rye, bourbon. And
Okay.
I've got a lifetime supply
Yeah.
from Michter's from my great college classmate. And
Okay.
and I heard what Deanna said about the vegan Bailey's Irish Cream. I'm actually drinking it out of a glass here. I don't know if you can see that. It says "Eat, Drink, Vegan," which is a shot glass we got when Shelley and I went to a vegan beer fest. Shelley's vegan, I'm vegetarian, so I'm all on board with that.
Well, I'm American,
No meat products in this.
but I appreciate you nonetheless, Steve. So,
Mm-hmm.
Steve Skrovan, all right, so you produced this film, Ralph Nader, which I saw, and enjoyed and admired, and you continue to produce a is it weekly? I think it is
Weekly radio show,
radio broadcast with Ralph Nader. You are the co-host of that. So tell us about the humor of Ralph Nader.
Well, Ralph Nader is kind of like funny like your dad. He loves the plays on words, but he does have a sense of humor, and about he's a good laugher, which is always the other side of the sense of humor. And he can occasionally make a pretty good joke. There was a joke that he made when he was running for president, I think in 2008 or something. And he was complaining to the Washington Post about them not covering his campaign. And he says, and the Washington Post people says, well, because you don't have a chance to win. And Ralph said, well, you still cover the Washington Nationals. So
cruel.
Yeah, and actually, one of my Canadian friends sent that to me as
to the point. Yeah,
because he thought it was funny too.
Yeah, well, Ralph, I supported Ralph Nader in that race, and he lost, and I lost with him, but lost proudly because he was standing up for all the progressive sort of issues that my party, the Democratic Party, ought to be standing up for.
Right.
And I have run many times here in the state of Texas, much to the amusement of the people. Been elected a few times, but also defeated. And in my last defeat, I did comment that Texas politics is kind of like being a peacock. One day you're a peacock, and the next day you're a feather duster. And that's what I became. And I resorted then to the only downward move you can make from politics, which is to go into media.
Yeah.
So here I am. But let's talk about ho ho ho. Here we are at the holiday season. What are you folks from all across America who are tuning in? By the way, we connect with you through Facebook Live and Twitter and all the other little snap things, and then also through Free Speech TV, which reaches some 40 million households across America, primarily in rural America, and we welcome you to the table. You're too little covered in our society, and so we're glad to have you with us. Deanna, you have something to add?
I just want to check in real quick. We've already got people toasting and cheersing. We've got people in Maine, we've got Colorado, we've got College Station, Texas, we've got Hudson, Massachusetts. She didn't say it was Hudson, but I know her and I know she's in Hudson. Anyway, we got New York City. Love my fellow New Yorkers. So please let us know where you're watching, what you're drinking. Oh, somebody in LA where it's raining. I heard y'all rain.
Oh yeah.
Hot tea. We support that. We support you and your hot tea.
Yeah.
And let us know what you're drinking, where you're watching from, and what questions you have, what stories you have from your political comedy lives. Because, the whole, if you're not crying, you should be laughing, or maybe the other way around. But anyway, I will be watching in the comments and resharing a bunch of stuff here. So let us know. I'm going to pop back out.
All righty. The
All
end is
right.
in. And we will be. Are you laughing into about 2021? Or are you laughing into 2022? And are you laughing just to keep from crying, or what? So talk with us here, because we're wanting we're wanting to celebrate life in our country, despite the despair that the powers that be insist on pushing down upon us like a crown of thorns, as we say. We've got all that going, but let's talk about humor as an organizing tool. This is historic in America. I mean, you go back even to the founders with humorists of that age, but certainly through Thomas Nast. We at the Hightower Lowdown in our last issue, we did the Save Cartoonists Americanus, which are the political cartoonists in our society. There were some just 20 years ago, there were some 200 newspapers had their own political cartoonists. Now less than a dozen do. Yet these people are geniuses. In fact, I'm quite jealous of them, because not only do they tell the story in very concise terms, but they draw a picture of it, and so they reach people in a way that exceeds political speeches by creatures like me. But that power of humor in politics, that is one thing I want to talk about, and not only continuing with Steve, but also we're going to talk with Zahra Noorbaksh. I'm going to say this right, Noorbaksh. Is that close, Zahra Noorbaksh?
You did it.
Noorbakhsh.
I'm so proud of you.
You just got to have this Bosch thing. Noorbakhsh. Nora is,
You nailed it.
Zahra is a terrific comic that is of the new age of comedy. It's not just Bob Hope and Milton Berle and et cetera, or even Steve Skrovan.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I have a TikTok. That's how new I am. I'm so new.
Well, that is so new.
You're a
Yeah.
fetus.
Yeah, right. So, Nora, I've got to read this. Where is it? Here it is. Nora describes herself. I keep saying Nora. Is Zahra.
It's that the
Zahra.
Z in the end. It's just always messing
Zahra.
with you. But I'm so proud that you landed the "huh." Nobody
Number-
ever gets there.
Yeah, that's my favorite part, actually. But anyway, she says she is a pork-eating, alcohol-drinking, premarital sex-having, bisexual, and married to an atheist white man type of Muslim. That's an identity, right?
That was part of the band that Trump had to have. It was all
Right. Yeah, right. I think so.
Yeah.
So Zahra, talk to us. Where did you come into comedy? How did this happen? You are Iranian American, second generation, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder about first generation, second generation. My parents basically were here to go to school, and then the Iranian Revolution broke out, and they were stuck here without resources, without any support. And probably my first exposure to comedy was really cueing from my mom, learning to ease tensions through laughter. My mom wore a hijab during the 80s and 90s. Back when being Iranian told people that you were Iranian and a hostage taker. And we had lots of fun, violence that we had to ease tensions around.
Right.
People would constantly drive past us and Flipper the Bird. Sometimes folks would think it was fun to pretend like they were going to ram the side of our car and then just like screech off, holding up a peace sign. So peaceful. But where I really gained my comedy chops was at, I don't know why, the produce section of the grocery store. Because I guess that's where you're just like looking at melons, weighing your options. And that's where people would always pause her to say, "Do you hate America? Why do you hate America?" And we made friends in the
in front
produce
of a
aisle.
cantaloupe.
Yeah, the American way.
Yeah, right. Terrific. Well, I can empathize with that a little, because I grew up a small guy in a small town here in Texas, and there would be the occasional fist fight, break out among the boys. And my specialty was to go around and say, "Let me get your coat. I can hold your coat over here for you." and
On your way out.
And trying to glide myself out of the actual brutality that was coming our way. So, but I think that's right. I think a lot of people, a way to divert anger and violence is to make people laugh a little bit, or at least take them back a step. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think there's sort of like a couple of veins of comedy. One of them is that, like, hey, let me get your coat right this way out the exit. Bye. And the other is to kind of stand up, to speak truth to power, point out what's ridiculous about that moment, mock the mocker. And I often say, I feel like I'm not enough of anything to be in charge of much. So I never really felt, as a pork eating, alcohol drinking, bisexual, Muslim, married to an atheist, white, infidel, barista, English major man. Wow. I just always felt like I'm on the outside of some community, and I never felt that blazer comedy authority to sort of be like, here I am representing, all reasonable men. I always felt like I'm here to represent me and not get in trouble. Here's your code.
Yeah, right. Well, in fact, there's an old line that I've used before about confronting truth itself, and it says that you should never hit a man with glasses. You should use something much heavier. And our glasses are that truth that you're talking about. Daring to say something that people actually, for the most part, in their heart, know to be true. And there's some element of we're all in this together aspect of that.
I think. Yeah, exactly. I think something that has been really a fascinating turn for me in my comedy and in my voice has been kind of being up against what people think is their boundaries and what people think is like their threshold for comfort, in a conversation, and to kind of push the envelope a little more to say, like, I think we have a capacity to have these conversations. I don't think it's as hard as it feels. And to show that, and to use myself as a foil to kind of say, like, look, we're okay and we're having a good time. We can have these conversations that we think we can't have.
Yeah. Steve, you've been on the front lines. Stand-up comedy itself is a daring act, it seems to me. I mean, I think of politics as insane, because you just put yourself out there, and your mama and everybody's going to know the result of it. So it's a kind of daring sort of thing. But standing up in front of an audience, cold, and saying, "Hi, I'm Steve Skrovan."
Yeah.
What does that do for you?
It's a very powerful position to be in, if you think about it. And I didn't come from a background that was particularly oppressed. I'm a strapping white male who was, born at the peak of the baby boom, had all the advantages, all the privileges. My people, Eastern European, Italian, appreciated humor and had a sense of humor. And I think, my dad especially is the person that I most emulate in that way. But I did it because first of all, I had the opportunity to, and it was fun. And there's nothing, and I realized that people will listen to you if there's the off chance that you're going to make them laugh. So that's a very powerful thing. And I've met now in my life, university deans, politicians, captains of industry. All they want to do is talk about what I do. All they want to do is be funny. And I realized, that is, like I told you about when I was drinking at my college reunion, which is quite a privilege. They always ask me to speak. Why? I'm a comedian, but I'm the one who gets to talk. And so that's a very powerful position to walk into a room full of strangers, demand everybody look at me and listen to what I have to say, and have this sort of dialogue with them. That you're the only doing the talking. Their part of the thing is to make this this mating call, which is called a laugh, to give you sort of that feedback, and you have this dialogue with them, and you tell them your stories and your little funny make 'em ups, and it's a very powerful position to be in. And so that's kind of what drew me to it, and why I think everybody should try it at least once, because if you can survive that, nothing else can kill you.
Well, and both of you referenced your parents. Zahra referencing your mother in the kitchen, and and you, Steve, your father. My father too was an inspiration to me. The fact that his name was High gives you some idea.
in the produce aisle, my mother in
Yes.
the produce aisle. I just want to create a whole new trope of woman.
Okay, thank
The
you.
woman in the produce aisle. Just
Thank you. In the produce
hot new
aisle.
type.
All right, there. Yeah.
I'm gonna go down to Ralph's right now.
And that's not Ralph Nader. That's
No,
the
no.
supermarket. Okay.
The supermarket.
All
Yes,
right.
that's right.
So, but
I'm glad you cleared
but
that
yeah,
up.
that power and I have used it in my my politics, but and particularly self-deprecating humor. I grew up in the middle of that in a little town in Texas, and that was that made you acceptable basically, because it humanized you. Basically, you can make fun of yourself.
It's disarming. It's all of that. Yes.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a little bit different, based off gender and presumed gender. I think for men, when men get up on stage, then it is a seat of power. For a woman, it's a really vulnerable place to be, because any position that is powerful that a woman inhabits is controversial. We're not at a place in society where we see a woman in power and we go, yeah, kill it. Slay.
That's a
Way
threat.
to go, Hillary. We're just not quite there yet. And so as soon as we see a woman in a position of power, we suddenly become aware of our agency as an audience to give her that power or reject it.
Yeah.
And so it sets it up so that for women, when we get up and we do self-deprecating humor, sometimes it can tap into the audience's desire to caretake, and to look out for us. And so if the audience is in a position where they feel like they're taking care of you, they feel like they have to pity you somehow or have to give you, a little extra leg up, then you're not powerful anymore. And they're sort of doing the work of the writing and the joke making for you. They're now a co-author with you, and it sort of takes away your credibility, and it creates a new problem for women. And so sometimes I'll see women get up and do self-deprecating humor and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And a lot of that has to do with where the audience is, in their relationship to the woman on stage.
But it's also, I think women are particularly powerful in confronting the expectation of power, and
Absolutely.
And asserting that power. I think of Lily Tomlin, whose line I use all the time: no matter how cynical you get, it's almost impossible to keep up. That's something that a regular person can say. Oh yeah, that's me.
a great line.
I'm having trouble with that. So there are ways to do this. Deanna, want to chime in here with some folks?
Yeah, I just wanted to extra shout out the gender, and obviously also layers of that, of different kinds of privilege, of race. You can also, I know, speak to in the same way of like what we're willing to accept from different people, and I think that this is where the conversation gets actually really, really interesting, and the comedy gets really, really better in a way, because you're having to the work gets really I'm trying to think of a word and it's totally failing me. It's the vegan Baileys has gone to my head. That's exactly what's happened now. That's
Don't
damn
ask me for any
vegans.
help.
Damn vegans. No, but it's a challenge to level it up, because I think, we suffered through a lot of bad comedy over the years as in a mainstream culture that was
And I was
going to a
responsible
certain...
for some of that.
Yes, you were. No, your episodes were amazing, Steve. Just don't ever forget that, okay?
Never
That's
Yours were
tremendous.
fantastic.
I can't do anything for you, Deanna, so I don't know why you're sucking up to me.
You're Hightower's friend. You're my friend. So anyway, so yeah,
There you
like raising the level, raising the bar of the comedy. It was it's what we strive for and that we need, actually. Like, I'm so sick of low bar comedy, so that when I see new comedians doing really challenging and interesting things, that to me is, you know, as a non-comedian who is a huge fan of comedy, that is what gets it going for me. So let's talk a little bit about like that political aspect of, and like that justice kind of aspect of doing comedy. Like, you know, one of the things we talked about in prep for this show is, you know, how a lot of conservatives will say that political correctness is stifling comedy. You're not allowed to say anything anymore. Womp womp. Exactly. You can't say anything anymore.
You know what they're saying, Deanna? They're saying they're not getting laughs.
Yeah.
It's not funny,
Yeah.
so they don't like to get booed. You know, you can say anything you want. These people are not getting canceled. They're getting booed.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah,
You say
and it's like being
your
held
shit
accountable
and
for
get
what you
booed,
say.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be able to take what the crowd, you know, gives you, and that's not being canceled or, you know, I don't know. Zahra, what do you think?
So many things. I mean, I definitely agree that I think that it's asking comedy to level up, to punch up, to get more specific, and for everyone to remember the audiences that have been invisible for years, decades, you know, that we just didn't care about. And
or the target of the humor.
Right. Right. And for me as a writer, artist, person who crafts and cares about technique, like, to hear even the notion that there's a whole audience of people that all this time have had an opinion and nobody cared is shocking and jarring. And my relationship to that is to lean into it, understand it, hear more about it. And I think it's such a source of entitlement and laziness to see so many people kind of go like, well, I don't have to listen on that. You know, it's just like, you know, you should be so lucky to get feedback. Like, it just is antithetical to my chops as a writer and as a comedian. Separate from that, the piece of it that I think doesn't get talked about enough is that when it comes to cancel culture, the people who are most at risk are other communities of color in inter-community conflict. That, like, I think something that people don't pay attention to is that it is much trickier for me to appeal to my own communities, my own intersecting communities, than to appeal to whiteness. And that when I'm appealing to whiteness, you know, and what we call mainstream, which is like the white audience base that for so long has not been privy to these sort of quote unquote niche audience experiences, that I have a harder time making sure that I don't get canceled within my own communities, because I'm in a position where I can hear them in their message and they can have an impact on me. And so sometimes what we forget is the comedians of color in our immediate communities that we need to have a dialogue with. And that I sometimes see folks exercising cancel culture on folks that just like don't deserve that we never hear about, and you're not gonna hear about them because that's how these hierarchies work, you know? And so by the time it trickles up and lands on white male, you know, cisgendered white men in comedy, there's so much else going on, you know. I don't know if I'm getting too esoteric. Am I making any sense?
No.
You're right on target. In fact, let me just throw in a little bit here, to expand the topic, just or maybe focus it a little more on the fact that there is the institution of comedy, or the establishment of comedy. We think of comedy as, well, that's, you know, that's the comedian's prerogative. They get up there and talk about whatever. But in fact, you've got to be able to have the camera. You've got to be able to have the audience. And there, we deal on this show with corporate power. running roughshod over all of us. And you don't have to just be in a factory to be exposed to this corporate power and its squelching potential, squelching reality for little d democracy and expression and et cetera. So tell us, both of you, because you've come from very different experiences, but your experience with that, with the institution of comedy.
I have the perfect anecdote to show the complexities of this.
Well, I'm not going to be able to follow a perfect anecdote.
Right. Well, go in the back room and think something up, Steve.
All right.
Steve, you're canceled.
If I pretzel your faces with this, I won. So, okay. I was featured in an anthology called Love Inshallah, The Secret Love Lives of American Muslim Women. Not so secret anymore. And with 25.
Where do I get that? Wait a minute. Hold on.
Amazon. Good.
Make a note.
Amazon. Okay. Got it.
Soft Skull Press. Where, I was in the book with 25 other Muslim women, all of our stories contradicting the other. It was fantastic. And one of the challenges that the two editors, Aisha Matu and Noura Masnavi, had in getting that book published was that because of previous publications that were in immediate response to 9/11 that, highlighted the quote unquote diversity and variations of Muslimness, they tanked. They didn't do that well. And so their response to them when they came to publish the book was, but Muslims don't read. And so what happens for folks of color in these niche audiences up against corporate interests is that when our audience that we sort of mascot for and blazer represent, decide that they don't feel adequately represented by the token selected for them, then the token loses out and the audience that they're supposed to represent both are deemed unnecessary, frivolous, not useful to the interests of a corporation, in this case, publishing. Okay. You lose a whole community of readers and just decide they don't read, so we don't want your authors and we don't want your audiences. The stakes of that are so much higher. There's so many white male comics out there who you can shrug your shoulders at and maybe say, I don't like them, or I do like them, or maybe you decide I'm canceling that person. And it doesn't mean that all of white America doesn't read anymore.
Very similar, but a gendered thing was a really good friend of mine and my former podcast co-host Alice Bradley and her co-writer Eden wrote a book called Let's Panic About Babies, and it was a satirical take on bearing children, having children, raising children, and small children. It was like basically just really amazingly hilarious and weird parenting advice. And when they tried to sell the book, they were told that that pregnant people don't have a sense of humor.
Wow.
Well, wait a minute. In all fairness, that's true.
That is not my experience.
Let me be more specific. Women in labor don't have a sense of humor. So
now we have
different than being a pregnant
at that moment.
Yeah.
Amy Schumer and Natasha Leggero, who all three performed pregnant and hilarious to push back on that, right?
Exactly. So I mean, this is I love this. You're being funny for two. Excellent
Funny
point.
for two. Well, let me expand. Let me look at another thing, which is that humor, of course, political humor, important, effective political humor, is minimally a product of humorists. It's actually a product of people who are active in the political sphere. I think of the Texas grotesque abortion law that our gooberheads passed a few weeks ago here in our state. That basically, before you are pregnant, you're not allowed to have. Before you know you're pregnant, you're not allowed to have an abortion. So,
and also before you're pregnant, you're not allowed to have an abortion.
Right.
So
Jessica Farrar.
I'm pre-pregnant right now, and I'm terrified.
I am too.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pre-pregnant. I don't know, Steve. How are you?
I'm actually an informant. If you tell me, I'm gonna have to report it.
You're all right.
That's
So-
the crazy thing about that law is it's all of a sudden Texas is East Germany.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, here is
Those would go
Jessica.
together.
But listen to Jessica Farrar. She is a state representative out of Houston, here in Texas. And she has done, other representatives around the country have done the same thing, but this is poignant and at the moment. She has introduced a bill to fine men $100 for masturbating and require a 24-hour cooling off period before they can buy Viagra. And it just goes on and on, highlighting those glaring irregularities that she's pointing out that more needs to be done to protect sperm because that semen could be used for creating more life. And so she's calling for a hospital masturbatory assistance registry to store semen for the purpose of conception down the road. That makes sense, right? So, I mean, that is better than 4,000 speeches about that law.
Yeah, and I
whole
think,
new meaning.
we're worried about the Taliban, overrunning Kabul when they overran Austin, Texas. That's
Basically.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometimes even one-liners. I speak to a lot of progressive groups, and some of them are depressed. Well, we can't make a difference. We're just this small little group here in Toledo, Ohio, or something. And I point out that even the smallest dog can lift its leg on the tallest building. People get that. If you could just use something simple like that. Woody Guthrie was a master at that sort of thing himself. He pointed out once that the mass migration of Okies off the farms in Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl and Depression, going to California, said it raised the intellectual level of both states.
Yeah.
So,
bird on the
Okies.
Listen, Hightower, don't get crazy because we've got Oklahoma representing here tonight in our viewership, and we've also got Arkansas, Southeast Ohio, which are my people. We've got Nebraska, Seattle, and Colorado, and Chicago. I love this.
Does Cleveland, Ohio weigh in?
Southeastern Ohio, but I also feel some good things. I was asked what my shirt actually says. It says "Maybe today, Satan," because that's how I've been feeling all day. So there you go.
There's a Christmas message for you.
So we do have an audience, an actual audience question for once.
Okay.
I'm not just yammering on for once, maybe. But before I do that, I want to remind folks that should you need more Hightower in your life, and who doesn't need more Hightower in their life?
You. I'm thinking that's
my Hightower is very low right now.
We can do something about that. We can help you, Steve. We're here for you for just 27 cents a day. No, just kidding. You can sign up to get a weekly email from Hightower
for free. Not even 27 cents.
Not even 27 cents. I mean, if you do want to give us the 27, it's fine. We're doing our end of year fundraising.
Send us a stamp.
Send us a stamp. And sign up for our weekly email here. URL is on screen. It is hightowerlowdown.org/email. So
I am
one of the questions.
Already.
There you go.
Yes.
He's the one.
There you go.
We knew he was out there somewhere.
I've looked at your open rates. Yeah. I'm the nerd behind the screen. So we do have a question that came up is digging into some of the complicated issues surrounding comedy. Bless you. You're welcome. Is a Seattle Pride organization, according to Norman, has asked promoters to cancel the Dave Chappelle shows coming up in Seattle at the Climate Pledge Arena because of his very anti-trans content. And so you have a situation here where here is an intersection of privileges, of injustices, of all of these things, and how do you kind of approach the Dave Chappelle question? Getting into, I have lots of thoughts about cancel culture and that it's mostly not real. But how do you get into taking on someone who's a powerful comedian, but is also of a marginalized community, doing comedy that hurts other people? Talk to me about this.
It's not funny.
Anyone?
Well,
Yes.
It's not funny.
Well,
What's funny about that? I mean,
I saw the special. Oh, go ahead, Zahra. You address this. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that struck me is, this way that the conversation around Chappelle makes it seem as though there isn't an intersection between Black folks and trans folks, and there's very vocal activists within the Black trans intersections of of these two so perceived separate communities that are speaking out very loudly, very clearly, saying exactly what it is that supports them.
Yeah. Steve?
When I saw the special, what I was struck by, first of all, because I was hip to all the controversy around it, and so I was kind of watching it for that. And what I saw on stage was a comic who was dealing with the stuff that was going on in his life, because he had to do an hour-long special for Netflix. And as Zahra knows, the material is hard to come by. And so you kind of talk about what's going on in your life. And what was going on in his life was this backlash about previous things that he had said about the trans community, which I wasn't quite aware of. And so I saw a guy who was kind of on the defense, kind of explaining himself. But the thing that struck me was when he said he was jealous. And I think he was talking about the community, the Black community, and saying that somehow he felt, and I don't know if this is valid or not, I don't think it is, that the white trans LGBTQ community had made so much more progress, so much more quickly than the African American community. And so to me, trying to explain, okay, why is he doing this? Why is he keep talking about this? The thing that struck me is that he was saying, listen, I'm talking about us. I'm talking about us, meaning the Black community, and that somehow he was jealous that there seemed to be more progress made in a shorter amount of time. And so that was what was interesting to me about the psychology. I am not qualified or don't have any perspective to talk about whether what he was saying was offensive or not, because I'm not trans or part of that community. I don't have that experience. But that's what I saw as a comedian doing. And
and I think that actually points exactly to what Zahra is saying, as I'm trying to point and not doing it right. What Zahra is saying, is that his assumption then is that these are separate communities. Right. That there is a trans community and there is a Black community, and that's where the problem is. That's where the nugget of what is funny and what's not funny.
And whose joke is it to tell, right?
Yeah. And whose joke is it to tell?
And Jesse Jackson said it across a lot of lines some years ago when he said, we might not all have come over on the same boat, but we're in the same boat now. And that's a great political reality right there, a unified political reality. And that ought to be the focus of the intent, at least, of our humor, as well as our less humorous politics.
I think that's where a lot of folks are struggling. And I think in a time where everybody is combating their scarcity mindset on the daily. I mean, here I am drinking my first cup of coffee of the day.
Wow.
It was a long
Poor baby.
I was going to say, that is a long morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Long morning.
It's dark, Zahra. It's already dark.
It's dark now. I think everybody is, trying to figure out whose story of resilience is it? Whose story of resilience do we tell? And so one of the hacks that I give folks when they're trying to figure out, like, is this my joke to tell, is this your story of resilience? And if you think that it is, go to bat for it. Do the work, do the writing, do the craft, you know, write that joke. And then when you hear the feedback, you go back to the table and rework it and you find it again. And, you know, that's the process of crafting a good joke. That's why everybody loves comedians for their talking points, is because we're constantly crowd testing.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Well, Deanna has got a sign off on her emails and etc. From Oscar Wilde that I think sums up a lot of this. Give it to us, Deanna.
The signature has a quote from Oscar Wilde that says, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken."
There it is.
And that's mostly the reminder to me, because I'm a hack, really. I just want to be like everybody else.
He had some very famous last words too, which I like.
Which were?
He said, he was on his deathbed. He said, either that wallpaper goes or I do.
Oh, who won? Ooh, you know.
Oh, I thought it said Rosebud, but
No, that's
folks are talking in the comments.
Teasing.
With a lot of love. Oh, we also was it Denmark? We had Denmark in the house tonight.
Hey,
that guy's
Yeah,
great.
sure. Yeah, we're global. We're intergalactic.
Denmark. I just saw a movie that took place in
Cosmic.
Denmark about drinking.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah. So hello, Jen.
And
Fascinating.
Try to explain that.
Okay,
movie.
go ahead.
folks are sharing some of their favorite political moments of the year.
good.
I know a highlight for me was when Ted Cruz went to Mexico
Right.
during the snowpocalypse in Texas.
Because he's a good dad.
Good
Come on.
dad.
Yeah.
Just trying to be a dad.
Just trying to be a dad. Where you
Matthew
take your
Dowd.
kids to Acapulco when they're
You know,
being
just doing
restless
that
and
dad
and they're
thing.
shivering.
Oh my God. Why are you guys trying to cancel me for being a dad?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to make up humor, right? I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes
Joe
it's just
Manchin
handed
on
to
his
you.
Joe Manchin on his
Honestly.
yacht, people had to kayak to his yacht just to get an audience with him.
So hard. It's so
Well,
hard. And they said, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
Hightower, go ahead.
you were
Oh
speaking
no, I was
Danish
just going to
here.
say, yes, I was going to say one of my favorite moments from that was when Matthew Dowd, the Republican, who was a George W. Bush staffer, I think he was a speechwriter for George W. He said, I worked with Ted Cruz, and there was a common expression about Ted Cruz. Why do people take such an instant dislike to Ted Cruz? And the answer is, it saves time.
Well, didn't Lindsey Graham say? Didn't Lindsey Graham say to Ted Cruz that
Great.
he could be shot on the Senate floor and everybody would be a suspect?
Right.
Yes.
Something
Yes.
like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think of the great humorist, writer, populist, insightful agitator Molly Ivins, from
Also brought up in the comments. Great.
just across the way from me here in South Austin, Texas, who said of a U.S. representative once that if he got one digit dumber, we would have to water him twice a day. So that's what we're dealing
Well,
with.
as long as we're talking about political figures, what's interesting to me is when Donald Trump started running for president, all the comedians, Jon Stewart, everybody, they're going, yes, John Oliver, Colbert, please run for president. It'll be so funny.
Yeah, right.
And then he does, and then he wins, and it's funny for a little while, and then it stops getting funny.
Yeah.
Because
It was not funny immediately for a lot of folks, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah,
Well-
definitely was not laughing.
It's not
but
just
then the jokes got too easy.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was
I mean,
like,
I think,
I can't even do it anymore.
right, like that, I remember that, and I like, there's so many things. I mean, because that is how dictators are installed, and that is how they, perpetuate so much violence. is that it's hard to take them seriously, and you
Yeah.
can't imagine that they're really going to do what it is that they're saying. And I remember, people saying like, it'll just be really funny. Like, I never took that to be like so let them on in, it's going to be great. I took it as like, that way that comedians make threats, is like, and that's kind of one of the things that I love about my comedian identity is like how serious we are when we're like, oh, I'm going to write a joke about that and take you down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many times where I've done material and people forget that, like, in all the hard-hitting, nuanced, like, parts and pieces of it, I'm still just trying to get people to laugh,
Yeah.
and it'll tank, and people are like, why did you do that joke? And I'm like, because I thought
Because
you
we're
would
all
laugh.
because we're laugh whores. We're laugh whores. Let's just say.
Right.
Yeah.
And Trump
Yeah.
got to the point where you didn't have to write the stuff.
I'm
You
going to
just
say
needed-
hoarders just because I have to step in on women as whores in this moment because I celebrate whoredom. But continue.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm all for sex workers. I'm all for sex workers.
That's
And
quote of
believe
the
me,
night right there, Steve. I'm all
I've
for
had
sex
a lot of laughs
workers.
having sex.
Hoarders like Bezos. Hoarders.
Hoarders. Yes.
Speaking of Bezos, that was actually one of my other favorite political moments of the year. And I've got a slide with this on, but my computer is doing odd things. But where someone pointed out, hopefully this will happen. But somebody pointed out that Bezos had went up in space with his hoarded money, but did folks happen to notice what the rocket looked like that he went up in? Anybody?
Oh my God,
happen
yes.
to- Yeah, hang on one second. Here it comes. This was my favorite comment on this was Freud
Yeah.
a late middle-aged male insecurity in the absence of a sensible tax code. Yes.
Jeff Bezos himself
I
looks
know.
Yes. Also
I
would
mean-
like to know a woman of color tweeted this because because
And-
that.
And the biggest joke of all, of course, he's Time Magazine's Man of the Year.
Of course he is.
Yeah. Well, so was
Is that-
Hitler at one
So-
point.
well,
So-
and remember, Donald Trump was Time Magazine's Man of the Year for several years, as
That
evidenced by the fact that he printed his own covers of Time Magazine with him on the cover, being
Right.
Time
Do we ever
Magazine.
do
of
we
the
ever
Year.
think vaginas will be as funny as dicks? Do we ever think we'll get there?
I'm sorry. That
Can't
is-
see him.
Oh,
No,
You can't see him.
Just-
That's the whole
the
thing. Can't see it.
artistry is
No.
I don't know.
There's nothing funnier than a dick. Possibly an asshole.
Well, wait, now hold on though.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that when it comes to comedy, the economy of funny means that socially we don't feel threatened by it. And so
Yes.
I'm asking, will there ever be a time where we can stop demonizing and villainizing women and scapegoating them when it
And
comes
people
to
with vaginas in
sex and
general.
attraction? Right. Because part of the work of rape culture was to make visible for everyone that the real power dynamic there was not that women were walking around with a treasure trove of love and ecstasy that they were just withholding from men, that men had to be clever about just claiming and grabbing, but that we're people, humans, with a right to our bodies, and so I'm asking, do you think there'll ever be a time where women's bodies are on the same plane as men so that then we can stop villainizing vaginas and celebrate them like we celebrate dicks?
I think with comedians like you, 100%.
Yeah, I think we're getting there.
Hey, that's the right
Progress.
Zara,
On
I
the-
think you have the title for your next Netflix special, Celebrating Dicks.
Celebrating badges.
Badges.
Oh, yeah. And
Here's
did
why,
remi-
here's
Go
why
ahead.
the penis is funnier, because it is powerful. And so it's more funny making fun of the powerful. So if people are making fun of vaginas, then that means powerful. Yeah.
Powerful.
No,
No,
They
it's
are.
not working.
when it gets to that point, then you'll know you've made it.
Yeah.
I'm also reminded of the writer Kate Harding years ago did a roundup during a quote unquote cancel culture moment of what's his face Tosh.0, and he was making rape jokes to an audience member who was heckling him, he started saying things like, "I hope you get raped." And people were saying rape isn't funny. Rape jokes are never funny. And she actually wrote down and shared 10 YouTube clips of 10 rape jokes that were funny because they didn't make fun of the victim. They didn't point at the victim. They were pointing at the power structures. They were pointing at rape culture, and they were dismantling the ideas that we have around sex and power. And I think that goes to the heart of political comedy. Terry Pratchett said that satire against people who are vulnerable is just bullying.
Right.
It's supposed we're supposed to punch up.
Yeah.
We're supposed to punch up.
And that was Trump. They say Trump doesn't have a sense of humor. He never laughed. He has the sense of humor of a bully, and that's why he's not funny.
Yeah. And a Nazi.
Funny unintentional.
And a Nazi. It turns out Nazis didn't have sense of humor either.
And an altogether
Nazis
creep.
laughed at a lot of things, and it wasn't good.
No.
None of them were good. That was the thing. None of them were good.
Well, Zahra, getting back to what you were saying about like Trump and people think he's funny. It was the same thing with Hitler. They didn't take him seriously because he was so outrageous.
Right.
And he should be in the funny papers, and that's how fascists get in.
Yes.
And that brings us to our conclusion of bodily parts.
Wait a minute, let me.
here on
Cheers, y'all.
the Hightower Radio Chat and Chew. You get a lot of education here, whether you want it or not. It's coming at you. But with a sense of humor and with a point. And that is what our terrific guest, Steve Skrovan and Zahra, I'm going to say it right again, Noorbaksh.
I'm just happy to be on a show with
Noorbakhsh. Noorbakhsh.
I'm just happy to be on a show with somebody else.
I did it.
Noorbakhsh. Better to pronounce than mine.
Yeah, I feel really good being in. Let me put up the four lowers here. I feel really good being in the company of people with many consonants in their last name.
Yeah,
like Hightower.
Well, you know what? Here's what is that my people write in squiggles. It's phonetically spelled for you.
True.
Yeah.
It's phonetically spelled for you.
Spot on. It's our own fault.
The KH can be silent, but just some guy at immigration was like, I think we can nail it.
Yeah. Well, it's not just you, let me say, because in my campaigning period, going down to South Texas, Mexican Americans and et cetera, they don't have high in their vocabulary, so it'd be and now we introduce Jim introducing Tower. Good enough, close enough.
Yes, amen to that.
Jim Tower and Zahra Noorbaksh.
There you go. All right, thank you both. You're terrific folks. We're delighted to be with you here tonight.
Thank you.
And thanks all of you good folks for joining us here at the old Chat and Chew Happy Hour. We will be back in the new year with something extraordinary.
Right.
We haven't even thought of it yet. It's so extraordinary, but it's going to be wonderful. Tune in with us, and thank you. Thank everybody for being a part of it, and let's have a better new year than we did this year.
Amen.
Cheers to that.